Welcome to Counselor's Corner. My name is Jeremy Counseller. I'm the Dean of Baylor Law School, and I'm very pleased today to be joined by Tochi Okoli, who's finishing up now her first year of law school. Welcome, Tochi. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. One of the two of us has an accent. Maybe both of us do. Mine comes from Humble, Texas. Where does yours come from?
So London, England, yes.
Okay. So here you are, Baylor Law School, Waco, Texas, originally from London, England. Tell me about the journey from London to Baylor Law School.
Yes, so born in London in 2000, grew up there, moved to Nigeria for 2 years when I was 10 to the age of 12, went back to the UK from the age of 12 to 16, came to America at 16, and then moved down from North Carolina, where I landed, to Houston for my undergrad, and then came here after. So that's kind of my bounce about.
Something I know about you is that you went to boarding school while you were in England.
Yes.
Tell me about boarding. So you went, I think, at age 12 to 16 in England. How is boarding school, and is going there as terrifying as it would seem to me at 12 years old?
So I think looking back, it was a little daunting just starting out and not being around. Of course, I was with my sister, but I didn't have my parents with me or anything like that. First time being away from home. But looking back on the entire process, I absolutely loved boarding school. Like, I loved being around my friends who became my family because I spent all my time with them. From like sporting events, and at the time, so in England, when, at least in the school I was in, they would take trips to museums or castles or things like that, and those were mandatory. So all those like historical, like the formative social experiences as well that a lot of people wouldn't have had the opportunity to partake in, because who goes to a castle on your regular time? I got to do those things. So definitely daunting just being away from home, but you learn how to be an individual. I learned how to do my laundry. I learned how to manage my time, or even just like hygiene things. Those things you kind of have to develop on your own with some guidance from adults, but it's really down to you to take ownership of those types of things. So I would recommend boarding school to everybody, but yeah, no, loved it.
Did they sort you into houses in your boarding school, like Harry Potter?
So
I know you're not a Harry Potter person.
Yeah. So by houses, do you mean like competitive houses?
Yeah.
Yes. So I was just talking about that today, actually. So the school I went to, our patron is Princess Anne. So because the royal family was such a big part of the school, our houses were named after the castles. So I was in Balmoral. There was Buckingham, Sandringham.
Balmoral.
Yeah, that was I go
That's
Balmoral.
in Scotland.
Yeah, and then so we had houses. Yeah.
Did they use a hat to sort you into houses, like place a hat on your head and then it announced the house that you were in?
Unfortunately, no, we did not have. But we did have, like, as part of our uniform, we had these straw hats, and then we also had tippets. So they're like, I would say like boat.
Tippets?
Yeah, it's like in America, like the cowboy tie.
Oh, gotcha, the bolo tie.
Bolo ties. They look like that. Yeah, and they strangle you. So, and if you pull them, they snap right back into your throat. So that we used to do that to each other. Sorry, everybody.
Okay.
But no, yeah.
So I also, from talking to you before, I know that part of the reason you were excited to come to the United States is because you grew up on American television. I'm wondering how reality matches the television shows that you watched as a kid.
For me personally, my school experience did not match that because, as I told you, I went to an all-girls boarding school in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
From 16 to 18. This is after the English boarding school. Okay.
When I came to, so American boarding school, very, very different from UK boarding school. A lot more liberties that we did not have over there. But because of that, I didn't do like the pep rallies, the football games, the homecomings, things like that. But public American high school very much aligns with like the TV show-esque thing that I was chasing, but no, I didn't do.
What about it aligns? Is it?
It's just the bigness. Everything in America is big. It's large and grand, you know. And like there are, in my graduating class, there were like 25 of us. But you have graduating classes in America that are like 500 students, like thousands of students. Like you have to rent out a football stadium just to, matriculate a class. I think that's so amazing because you just don't get that in the UK. So that's that bigness, yeah.
Okay. So part of something that I see in your kind of journey leading up to law school, before law school, is advocacy. And I think you've worked on some causes related to children in Nigeria. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, so the summer rather, before I went to undergrad, I was in Nigeria and I did a constitutional law internship in Nigeria. And really it was focusing on the roots of corruption. So this is something I'm really passionate about because Nigeria used to be a force to be reckoned with, economically, socially, politically. And for various reasons, the government has just been so destabilized. And so I wanted to understand the roots of that destabilization, like what allowed corruption to enter the government and just dismantle all forms of structure. And so I was looking at the root of that, which was really the pulling out of colonial powers in Nigeria, which unfortunately is the UK, but really just leaving Nigeria with all forms of, just removing all forms of structure, all forms of governance, drawing these strange boundary lines for Nigeria, and incorporating a group of people that come from different countries, have different roots, speak different languages. In one Nigeria, you have over 200 languages spoken. And the only reason why that is so is because of just an intention on behalf of colonial leaders to create division wheresoever possible. Force a group of people to live together in one land when those people just are not tied in any way. And so because of that, when you remove that colonization, you're left with a group of people that just want to empower themselves and their people and have no harmony, no balance, no anything. And so I was just kind of researching the history of that, looking at how that impacted Nigerians in the modern day. And really, unfortunately, it only is devolving into a worse reality for many Nigerians. It's a very, today, a lot more young people are crying out, which is a really good thing, but it's not getting any better. So, yeah.
Did that experience have anything to do with your decision to go to law school, working on those issues?
It did. I'm very interested in international relations, and I have a goal. I've given that goal to God because I don't know how I'm going to accomplish that goal, but I just want Nigeria to get back to that place of being a force to be reckoned with. So I just want to understand how to advocate. Right now it's on a smaller scale, obviously, because it would be advocating for clients, but I want to know how that advocacy for individuals translates to advocating for a people and bringing back harmony to people. And really a people who were never supposed to live together in the first place. How do you create that balance? That it's a big goal, but we'll see where life takes me.
But that's kind of your why or your inspiration for going to law school.
Yes.
So you're heading towards the end of your first year in law school right now. How has your first year of law school maybe been different than what you expected it to be?
I went into law school thinking I was going to read statutes all day, and that's a common, I think, idea from many people who go to law school. I didn't realize how much my mind was not yet trained to think like a lawyer. I didn't really even know what it meant to think like a lawyer, apart from this broad phrase, which is analytical thinking. But what does it really mean to think analytically? And I think my exams, my professors, my peers mostly, have shown me the gaps in my understanding and have helped me fill in those gaps to understand what maybe when I read something, I'm not analyzing immediately, whereas other people are picking up on it. And it's really trimming me, and I'm hungry to see those things. I'm hungry to think more analytically like my peers do. So I always heard that, law school is competitive, and I anticipated that. But I didn't anticipate how much that competition was actually going to refine me and make me a better thinker and make me a better, prospective lawyer.
It really, to your point, it really is, law school really is, I think, legal education, it really is a transformational education of the person who undertakes that journey. And I think one thing for people who listen to the podcast who maybe are thinking about law school is, and we say this, is that it's, especially the first year of law school, is not principally about the acquisition of knowledge, it's about the acquisition of skills, how to think like a lawyer, how to communicate like a lawyer. And it's that piece, I think, that the expectation that I'm going to learn a bunch of stuff versus acquire a lot of skills. That juxtaposition, I think, is what comes as a surprise to some students as they go through the process, particularly in the first year. Wondering what you look forward to about law school. What else? I mean, you've gone through the moot court competition recently. You're finishing up your first year courses. What are the things on the horizon about law school that you look forward to?
I think that I look forward to breaking a lot of the molds that I've put on myself that have not allowed me to do certain things that I've wanted to do. So, for example, I would say I'm a very shy person. Being in law school has made me realize I can't afford to be shy. I can't afford to shut myself down before I've given somebody else the opportunity to say yes or say no, because I just won't be successful. I'm just looking forward to seeing how I transform as an individual. Even when it comes to self-advocacy, because of how shy I am and because of how, there are certain perceptions of, individuals just from the outset. I've never wanted to conform to certain perceptions that people have of, just different things that society places on people. So I've let a lot of things slide that have impacted me up to this point in my life. And I'm getting to a point where I'm like, no, I deserve better. And how are you advocating for other people when you can't even advocate for yourself? I'm very, very excited to come out on the other side of that and just see how I end up as a person.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Students, so many of them, some sitting in that chair where you're sitting now and others in other contexts, who tell me I'm a shy person.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they're doing these things that maybe would astonish a shy person, that they're doing something and they're shy. And then also, I think a lot of people, it's not uncommon at all for, I can advocate for this person, but advocating for myself is something different.
Right.
But that is a lesson we all have to learn, how to effectively advocate for ourselves. I think those are good objectives for you to have as you move through law school, although I anticipate that process may take longer than law school will continue to develop on that front. I know in my own life and career, I'm still a work in progress on those fronts for sure. One thing that I noticed that you did, and I think this was in Houston, you worked at the district attorney's office. And going back to the advocacy piece, what kind of work did you do there, and why did you want to work at the district attorney's office?
So I've always been really interested in criminal law. I started from my mum, who's a massive fanatic for true crime. After working at the DA's office, I cannot watch true crime because I worked in the major offenders unit, so worked with the murders and things like that. And I worked specifically on capital cases. That was just a random assignment, but I loved the experience. In terms of advocating, I worked a lot in evidence processing. I saw the behind the scenes of the ADAs getting ready for trial. I got to see the intricacies that are involved in working on a capital case that might not be the same for a non-capital case. And the biggest, I'm not sure if the case is finished. I'm allowed to, refer to it, right?
Yeah, I think you can refer to it. I would just leave names out.
Definitely. But the case that I worked on specifically was a case about a man who killed the first sick openly sick police officer in the HPD, in the Houston Police Department. And so he was a trailblazer for the community, and he was basically just known to everybody in his community as an amazing man. And so he ended up getting the death penalty. And I think just being on the backside of that and seeing the family, seeing the impact, even in the police department as well, and knowing that the little things I was doing, watching body cams, going through phones, going through emails, it had a massive impact on the trial. The things that I prepared were given to the jury to see, to watch. And so it just made me excited, because even though I was on the back end reviewing this evidence, I want to be on the front end too. You know what I mean? Like standing up before the jury, really having that oral advocacy. So that's what really pushed me to going to law school.
Is that something you think you'll want to do after law school, is maybe be an assistant district attorney?
Well, yeah. Criminal law is something I'm still so passionate about. The only thing that scares me is what I saw, and I really enjoyed having access to those things, because I think as a society we're just very shielded and we don't want to see things I feel like many of us should see, because some people don't have the privilege to not see. But I think I would just need a little bit of self-preparation for what I would be getting myself into. But I'm very interested in pursuing criminal law, yes.
Yeah. I think it's a great option. I mean, especially for somebody who wants to make a difference in people's lives. I mean, you saw it in your internship. It really is a tremendous opportunity to. All right, Tochi, it's now time for the lightning round. Your answers to these questions have to be short.
Okay.
If you could have a meal with any historical figure, who would it be?
FDR.
All right, I would love to follow it, but I can't because it's the lightning round. Best meal you've ever had and where?
My mum's suya for Christmas.
What is it?
Suya, S-U-Y-A.
Tell me what that is. I got to follow up on that.
It's a Nigerian beef. Well, it's meat typically, but it has a special seasoning powder, and she makes it perfectly. Yes. Unfortunately, here in Waco, you'll never get to try it.
I can, because I know you, and I mean, through you, your mother, I might be able to get some. All right, this one's good for you. Favorite childhood TV show or movie?
Oh, Anastasia, the Disney princess movie. All-time favorite.
This is a tough question for someone who's spent some time in the Houston area, as you and I have talked to. We've both spent a lot of time in the Houston area. Great restaurant town. Favorite dining spot in Waco?
Waco. La Fiesta.
What's your go-to comfort food? Why are all my questions food? What's your go-to comfort? Is it suya?
No, jollof rice.
Okay. The most adventurous thing you've ever done?
Most adventurous thing? Breaking out of boarding school with my friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
You broke out.
Yes, we did. My sincerest apologies to my house mistress.
Is this known by the boarding school that you did this?
It is now known to them.
They didn't catch you at the time?
They did not,
okay.
No.
Are you aware, is there a statute of limitations on that crime?
Yeah, this was about 10 years ago, so I have to be safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's one thing on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
Jump out of a plane. That's so cliche. And I will never do it because I'm afraid of heights. So I don't know why it's on the bucket list.
I'm never going to do it either, so I'm fully behind that. Okay, last one. If you could be any fictional character for a day, who would it be?
Fictional character. Mulan. That's another one of my favorite movies.
You're a Disney fan.
I definitely am.
Okay. I understand that you may have a question or two for me.
I do. So as I've been in law school, I've been exposed to more of the minds of lawyers, and I've seen the good and I've heard the good, but I've also seen a lot of people who, burn out. And many people talk about burnout,
But I'm more so interested, you as the dean, and you are a professor, and you taught one of my 1L classes. And many times, people got the answers right, and that's great, but people got the answers wrong. Like, I'm interested in what keeps you in your love of the law, so much so that you could practice for all those years and still coach people through and teach people through the rudimentary aspects of the law. Like, how do you not lose that passion?
I think I found a thing to do that it was right for me. Teaching is right for me. And I think something that's important is, what's the old saying? If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Well, I get to do something that I love, which is to be in the classroom. It doesn't, I think students may think that I or other instructors get frustrated when the answers are wrong, when we call them. That's really not true, particularly if the answer is the result of effort, but it just isn't quite perfect, maybe it is wrong. But if it's the result of effort, I would much rather have an answer the student struggled for that is broken in a helpful way. Because you can take that answer and you can correct it and you can say, here's the part that's not correct about that answer, and let's examine that, why it's not correct. That is actually, in my experience, a better teaching moment, a better experience in the classroom for other students than for the response to be, Tochi, that's the perfect answer. And then you just walk away from it. Because there's nothing to add. There's nothing to emphasize or correct. Now, I think if students were constantly getting things wrong because they hadn't put any effort into the reading assignment, that would be something I think that could frustrate me and maybe lead to burnout. But, one of the things I love about Baylor Law School, and I've said this for the 2+ decades that I've been here teaching, we get really good students, but I really feel like we get more than our fair share of really good people who are dedicated to trying to become a great professional and who know this is going to take work and I'm taking it seriously. I love, I remember when I was a law student, I would really struggle through some of the reading assignments. I mean, I remember somewhere I would read them multiple times. I would just say, I have no idea what I'm supposed to. Yeah, Penor Vinef. I have no idea what I'm supposed to take from this. And reading it again, and the same thing. I now, from this perspective, the idea of a student struggling with the law alone like that just thrills me, because that's the process that leads to that transformation that I mentioned earlier. But and as far as the profession, like any other profession, we can have burnout. I mean, that's for sure. And I think it's important for me. What I try to do is keep perspective on things. I mean, I serve as a professor here on the faculty, and since July I've served as the dean. But that's not who I am. That's part of who I am. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I have institutions in my life that are important to me other than Baylor, although Baylor is very important to me. So I think to keep perspective on things is helpful in that regard, just so you don't have all your eggs in the professional basket can help with that. So, yeah.
I do have a follow-up.
Yeah,
if
please,
you don't mind.
please.
So I think another, kind of going off of what you've said, there's a culture nowadays to go to school for a professional degree, work in that professional degree for a few years, and then get into additional streams of income that don't require you to use that degree. As a successful lawyer yourself, what has kept you wanting to pursue law, even if it's in the academic scene? Why not anything else, like real estate or just retiring? You know what I mean?
Well, clearly you haven't heard about my tech startup. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I do think one thing that I've always loved about being on a law faculty is I get to sort of be the artist of my own career. I mean, look, I've got a podcast here, right? So there's a variety of things that I can do that keep me interested, keep me engaged. I'm not making any money off this deal, but I think that I've stayed where I am doing what I'm doing as a teacher because I like it a lot. I like the people I work with. I like the students that I get to work with. And I also really believe in the institution I work for. I think that's something that can keep you focused is, do you believe in the mission? And this is not our mission, but our ethos is certainly prepare students for the practice of law. That's part of our mission, is preparing students for the practice of law. I believe in that mission. I believe that what we do here can help you when you are out doing whatever you're doing in the legal profession. But I think no matter what you do, Tochi, and I would say this to any of our students, you're going to be serving people. And that's really important work that you're going to do. So what we do here is really important work as well.
Right.
To get you ready for those future clients, for those future communities that you and all of your classmates and all Baylor lawyers who are or ever were are going to serve. I'm behind that 100%. I mean, that's just a real privilege. And to be able to think about it's bigger than me,
Right.
that's a really big motivator for me. That keeps me engaged. Tochi, thanks so much. Been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.